To start, select a color and place 4 pawns that color in each starting circle. Shuffle the cards and place them in the center.
When setting up, if you're playing with 4 players, use all 72 of the cards. However, if you're playing with less than 4 players, make sure that you grab 2 immobilized cards per person, 4 vanish cards per person, 2 possession cards per person, 2 cure cards per person, and 1 of each of the movement cards per person. This is to ensure that you don't have too many vanish cards. The objective of this game is for each player to get 1 of their pawns into their corresponding home base. This differs from base sorry, which has players race against each other to get all 4 into their home base. Players work against the board, helping each other. To start, the youngest player goes first. They will draw a card from the pile and must move according to that card.
8. Move forward 8 spaces.
The main difference between this game and base sorry is that players are allowed to move any pawn. If you draw a card, you have to move. Unless you are unable to move, the movement cards are 1, which lets you move forward 1, 2, which lets you move forward 2, 3, which lets you move forward 3, 4, which lets you move backwards 4, 5, which lets you move forwards 5, 7, which lets you split movement between 2 pawns, 8, which lets you move forward 8, 10, which lets you move forward 10 or back 1, 11, which lets you move forward 11 or switch 2 pawns, 12, which lets you move forward 12 spaces, and under certain conditions, the cure card, which will let you move forward 4 spaces if you have nothing else to use the cure card on. Another key difference between this game and base sorry are card effects that have certain conditions called afflictions. These afflictions are immobilize, possess, and vanish. The immobilized card locks movement of a particular pawn color. The player who draws the immobilized card has their pawns locked. They may continue to move other players' pawns, but no player may move pawns of that color until the immobilized card has been discarded. Possessed. Possessed forces a player to move only a single pawn that is possessed. This pawn will send other pawns back to start as it passes over them, unless the pawns it passes over are also possessed. And if it lands directly on a pawn that is not possessed, or slides into one using the slide feature of the game, which does not differ from base sorry, those pawns will be removed from the board.
A possessed card, if you draw a possessed card before you start, you automatically move 1 pawn out, and that pawn is possessed. The green pawn is possessed. Yeah. Therefore, when it lands on a pawn that is not possessed, it immediately vanishes it. That card is sent outside as if it had a vanish card. So if a possessed pawn lands on a slide that has a non-possessed pawn on it and slides through the end, that pawn is vanished.
Vanished. Vanished removes a pawn from the board. If there are no more movable pawns because of vanishing, the game ends. If there are no more movable pawns because of immobilization, all players will remove 1 pawn from the game board as if they had vanished and continue playing from there. The vanished card, like all afflictions, can be fixed with a cure card. Even if a pawn was not vanished from the vanished card itself, a cure card will bring 1 pawn back to start. The cure mechanic is another collaborative mechanic for this game. If any player draws a cure card, they may cure any affliction. They are not limited to curing just their own. Additionally, players that land directly on an afflicted player cure that player of a condition. A player can cure a vanished pawn by landing on a corresponding pawn of that color that is on the board.
So players who are in home may continue to draw cards to continue movement. However, if all other pawns are vanished, the game ends. This is a lose condition. This is a win condition, when every player has at least one of their pawns in the home spot.